pre-styling days, I had been crew, and before that was working in a retail store. So I feel that they're all kind of nicely aligned, and I did this for 15 years. I was like, this is like a brilliant day, like being a big sister effectively, and getting to take her shopping and took her to the photo shoot, and those pictures were incredible, seeing her smile, and the mum was so grateful. I think, this was my job, but actually it was so much more. When everything feels uncomfortable, still in those moments, I made an effort to feel good for me. But I think we all have a capability and a right, by the way, to influence people around us. Lifting weights, building strength, I love it. It makes me feel so happy. I think confidence comes when we start to see evidence. I believe that often how we feel, our surroundings affect us so much.
Welcome back to Breaking the Cycle, and today with me I have personal brand strategist Kelly Lundberg. Now you're probably wondering, breaking the cycle, personal branding, why do those two go hand in hand? Because if I could get $1 for every single time that I was told that I'll only change my life, I'll only show up for myself when things get better, I'd probably be a billionaire. Just saying. That being said, we're going to be uncovering a lot more about why you should be showing up for yourself, no matter the stage of life, no matter where you are on your journey, that and so much more with Kelly. Hi, Kelly.
It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
I feel honored after all these years. It's so nice.
Yes, it is. So I know you as a personal brand. You were my personal brand strategist, and we worked out together. We still are friends.
Yeah.
I just want to uncover everything you have in that amazing brain of yours behind you, your personal brand strategy, and everything going forward. So first and foremost, if you can tell us about your personal brand and why personal brand strategist.
It's a great question. I would say personal brand strategist. So I think understanding for those that are going, what even is a personal brand? This is not relevant to me because I don't have a personal brand. So I think if we should set that expectation first as to what is a personal brand. And I always say your personal brand is ultimately how you make people feel. And that can be online, offline, in person, at work, at the school gates when you drop your kids off. Every scenario has a version of you and your personal brand and how you show up. Your husband or wife knows you as one version, your colleagues at work know you as one person, your gym buddy will know you as another version. So for me then, who is Kelly and why personal branding? And I think that probably even stems back to, interestingly, my dad did a wedding speech, Father of the Bride, just last year. And he started by saying, as many of you know, Kelly shares a lot of her life on social media. And everyone laughed, and I'm thinking, God, what's he going to come out with next? And he said, I'm going to tell you what Kelly was like when she was wee. And Kelly's first words were not mummy, daddy, mama, papa. Kelly's first words were hiya. And for those that maybe don't know, hiya is a Scottish informal way of saying hi. And what I would do is, he's explaining this, that I would go to the end of my garden and I would swing on this garden gate and I would shout hiya to every single neighbour or person that went past, and I'd be inviting them in. And at my own wedding, I had this aha moment of, geez, I've been doing this all my life. How do you make people feel seen, heard, welcome, inviting? And it really, for me, highlighted that I'm meant to be doing. I'm fully aligned with where I am, and it's actually happened really organically, because every job I've done at the time, I've been like, I love this, until I don't, and then I change. And it's just happened over the last 25 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how has building your personal brand helped with self-image and confidence?
Wow, huge. And I think I should probably take a step back. So I originally moved to the Middle East as an opportunity to escape Scotland. And I would say escape Scotland, but the weather. And it's not renowned for its 40 degrees. It's people in terms of friendliness, absolutely. But the weather is quite hostile.
Yeah. Yeah.
and an opportunity to live elsewhere. And for me, arriving in the Middle East, I was cabin crew. And it was
Wow, come a long way from cabin crew.
haven't I? But
Yeah.
I think that's where my journey on sort of image, how you present yourself, how people perceive you. You know, Emirates in those days had really kind of tight guidelines, and you either adhered to those guidelines or you left. There
Yeah.
was no halfway house. So it taught me a lot about standards. How you're perceived when the standards are consistent. And from there, I saw a gap in the market whilst I was living in Dubai to launch what was the Middle East's first personal shopping and styling service. So pre-styling days, I had been crew, and before that was working in a retail store. So I feel that they're all kind of nicely aligned, and I did this for 15 years. Now, for 15 years, I worked with individuals, so men, women, children. I had a very interesting introduction into styling my very first 8-year-old. And yeah,
Lovely.
and it was an actual client of mine that had come to me, and we had styled, and she said, do you work with children? And I was like, well, I can do, thinking, oh, this is next level. Dubai, that's wanting some styling advice for their 8-year-old. And she said, well, this is the situation. She was born with a cleft palate, had reconstructive surgery, so you wouldn't notice. But there's a slight mark on her face. And kids can be mean and cruel. And she said she's just getting a little bit of a hard time at school. And I want her to feel really confident. So I would love for you, if you could take her shopping, to pick different things for what mum would normally pick. And then can we book a photo shoot for her so I can really help
That's lovely.
build her confidence? And I was like, absolutely. And, I didn't have any nieces at the time. And I was like, this is like a brilliant day, like being a big sister, effectively, and getting to take her shopping, and took her to the photo shoot. And those pictures were incredible, seeing her smile, and the mum was so grateful. I think, this was my job, but actually it was so much more in building the confidence of a young girl through clothing, which can be an armor, it can be a tool to help you feel more seen and more heard. And that was probably my first introduction into kind of personal brand. Style is a huge part of it. It's not the only part, but it's a huge part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a beautiful story for an 8-year-old girl to build that confidence so young. She will probably remember that for the rest of her life. How
So
beautiful.
I do.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we even became friends, I used to follow you on, that's how we became friends. We became friends over social media. I used to follow you, and I used to look at you and be like, I bet you this woman never has a bad day. Like, just look at her. Look at the way she shows up every single day. And I really, really want to dig into that a little bit deeper, because online and offline, I've seen you in both places. I've seen you speak on stage. We've gone to the gym together. You always have your hair done. You always show up. I'm sure you have off days. But on those off days, how do you show up for yourself?
It's a great question. And I think probably COVID taught me a lot. I think I was living on my own at the time. And I remember then when things were tough, like it was a tough time. And I know there's a lot of things we can look back and go, I was grateful that this happened. And we see the good days and we saw positives out of it for sure. But I made sure during that time in lockdown, I dressed up for me. Because there was none of this half effort around. There was none of this, I'm going to look good in the top and you don't see what I'm wearing below, because you just don't feel the part. And I think so much of it is you've got to feel good for you, for no one else. I was dressing up for no one. Like some days I wouldn't speak to anyone, but I'd feel good. I'd feel good for me. So I think, okay, not every day I dress up, but then there's other things that I'll do. So let's take a Saturday, for example. I kind of try not to wear makeup on a Saturday. It's nice to have one day off where you don't have to. But I put a hair treatment in my hair, and I will do a face mask, or I'll do my LED mask, or, I'll be taking something out there, and I'll do something for me to feel good. I'll put on some fake tan. I'll do that. But I'll equally then, I'll also choose, which this sounds ridiculous, but I like I don't wear, I don't think anyway, horrible, crappy things at home. It's not expensive things, but I wear nice, cute shorts and a little t-shirt that feel nice. And you know, one thing when I was editing clients' closets for 15 years, like I have seen some stuff and unearthed some very interesting things. But it's quite fascinating what people will say, oh, this is just for home. If it's got holes in it, yeah, who cares? You care. What about your spouse? Like, I don't dress nice for my husband now. I dress nice for me, first and foremost. And secondly, then, yeah, all right, if he likes it, then it's a bonus. But for me, and that may sound very selfish, but no, you've got to feel good because you can't then show up for your spouse or your kids if you don't feel good.
Yeah. And when you showed up, when you dressed up, even in these COVID days, how did that translate to having a good day or show up in your quality of work?
Oh, 100%. Even more than that. Because I think what it translates is something silent that, believe it or not, people can feel it through the phone if they're looking at your stories, and that's energy. And that is an invisible currency that you can own, but you have to fill your own cup to feel good about yourself. And for some people, it's a gradual process. You know, did I always feel this happen? No, it's taken time. I've had my challenges. You know, I've been through a huge breakup. I've had to change my environment, my circumstances. Like when everything feels uncomfortable, still in those moments, I made an effort to feel good for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so if we can bring it back to personal branding piece of people, so most of the individuals that listen to the podcast are struggling with their self-worth, self-esteem, their identity in some cases, and men and women. And so if we bring it back to personal branding and how they can show up for themselves, what are some of the pillars that they should start looking at or one should consider when trying to work on their personal brand?
I think that the style is obviously a huge part of that. But when people think of style, they think of clothing, which yes, because that's your visual calling card and the memory that you leave people with. Do you know the movie In Pursuit of Happiness?
Yes.
And you know that there's that moment where he's painting his house and then he gets arrested for not paying his parking fines and he has to stay the night in the jail and then the next day he has to go for the interview and he's dressed terribly because of where he'd been. But the chap that was interviewing him said to his colleague, "But have you ever seen him look like this?" And he said, "No. Every single time I've seen him, he's been consistent." And I think that is, you know, part of a message where consistency is something that then anchors in people's minds that they always turn up well dressed, well put together, polished, styled. Notice I didn't use the word expensive. Because it doesn't have to be. So style is a huge part of that, but with that is also grooming.
Yeah.
So your hair, your makeup, your teeth, your your accessories that you carry. How do they make you feel? So that's the kind of the style piece. But I think what people overlook in the style when they're looking at their brand is their vocal style. You know, do you speak like this?
Right, that's a good point.
Or, you know, are you able to go into a meeting and, sell whatever it is you're selling, your service, your business, your whatever. So I think style has multiple layers to it.
Yeah.
But when we're looking at our personal brand, it is, yes, how you feel. But I think the big piece is where a lot of people get confused is this word that's around a lot, authenticity. And I actually asked ChatGPT last year, what is the one thing that, something how I worded it, what is the one thing that most people are struggling with their personal brand? Or what's the most asked question that people ask you about personal branding? That was it. And the answer was how to be authentic with their personal brand. So where is the authenticity coming through in your personal style? I think is one element, but also through the content that maybe you share. So if you're in a professional capacity, are you sharing that on LinkedIn? But also in a personal space, you know, are you consistently showing up as the same person?
Yeah, not dressing up on Monday, but showing up as whoever on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And And then the common feedback. So when I work with clients, I always tell them you need to show up for yourself. Doesn't matter if you're not at that goal weight as yet or that goal recovery version of you as yet is, but Natasha, I'm not an influencer. Have you heard that one before?
Yeah, a lot.
And what's your response to that?
We all have the power to influence. I think that's it. So yes, you may not be an influencer in your eyes of what you define as an influencer, but I think we all have a capability and a right, by the way, to influence people around us. And that might be influence our children with good, healthy eating habits. That might be influence our mum or our father to go to the gym so that they can live longer, so they can see it. That is a form of influence. So it's not just on social media. Your personal brand is how you're showing up in your home life. And I had this wonderful feedback from a workshop I was doing in a corporate setting. And at the end, I always ask people, what's your one takeaway? What did you learn? And because one of my values is inspire to action, I always want to know what are they going to action, that they haven't just sat in a workshop and gone, oh, that was motivating or that was good, and they don't do anything with it. So I went round the room and this gentleman gave me his professional action that he was going to do. And then he said, on my way home, I'm going to go and buy my wife some flowers because I realized that my personal brand is not just who I am at work, it's who I am at home. And that starts with me. And honestly, if it wasn't a professional capacity, I would have gone over and hugged him because I was like, that is so nice. And I really just loved it because your brand is you. It's you. And it evolves and it changes. And that is part of the process. And that's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. And there's so much power in that, even as you're speaking it. And I got chills down my spine. Good for him for actually coming to that. I want to talk a little bit about your health and fitness journey as well, because you've come a long, long way since then, and you have a photo shoot coming up this weekend,
I do.
Right? But I'm sure people must be watching this and thinking to themselves, yeah, but look at her. She's never struggled with weight, and she probably doesn't even know what it feels like to be on my end of things. But if you scroll through Kelly's social media, there are some pictures of you back in the day with, I think, what may have been a Lorna Jane set.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
And you're like,
remembered.
Yeah, and you're like, Natasha, I don't even think I'm standing straight here. Like, what's happening? So if you want to just take us through that, because I don't believe that struggling with weight, struggling with your body, struggling with an eating disorder has a shape or size. It can affect anyone and everyone. So if you want to take us through that as well, and how your personal brand evolved from Kelly then to Kelly now.
Wow, it's huge. And it's a never-ending journey. And I love that you've been part of that. I remember the day that we first went to the gym together. And it was honestly like, what equipment shall we do? And we didn't even have a routine. But I think probably before that. So I have always been labeled. And I think this is interesting. Labeled a fussy eater. And I've carried that label with me all the way throughout my life until kind of the last sort of 5-6 years. And because of that label, I've had a very, shall we say, selective diet. It's been very minimal. It's consisted of a lot of, shall we say, bread and cheese, and a lack of knowledge. I thought, cheese had a bit of protein in it. I didn't realize things like it had the amounts of fats and everything, so I lacked a huge amount of education. I lacked a huge amount of confidence. And when I went through a pivotal moment in my life at 36, where I separated from my husband at the time, and I basically went and lived in a hotel for 12 months, and I had lived off pizzas, and I think I was probably one of the few that go through a major breakup and gain weight in that space where, I know traditionally a lot of people kind of go the other way. And I got to a point where in my head I was, a size or two bigger, but I didn't understand, this is interesting, this on the scales, whatever, kilos heavier, but it was this fat, like when we talk about fat loss,
Yeah.
I didn't understand this whole piece in this strength in building muscle. And when you build muscle and eat protein, And then the journey. So there's been a huge education piece for me, and you've been part of that piece. I remember actually messaging you one day, going, I have hit over 100 grams of protein. I was so delighted with myself that I'd hit 100 grams of protein.
I remember that.
And it was like, wow. For me, that's been the biggest kind of education piece, and losing this label, where in actual fact, I'm not a fussy eater.
Yeah.
I am actually, I have a texture issue. And that is very different.
Absolutely.
And, I think the whole label thing of, being labeled something, you carry this with you for a long time. And that was part of my identity, Kelly the fussy eater. And even now my mum will go, oh, you're so fussy. And I'm like, no, Mum, I'm not. Because she knows this version of Kelly from a long time. Obviously, she knows me now, but not this person where I've been through this massive transformation in my eyes. And this is, what I eat now, Mum. And this is what or my dad, or whoever it is, It's all of that journey of education. I wish they taught it at school.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something they definitely miss out on. It's they teach you, okay, you've got to study this, you've got to study that. But we would have saved so much time and started so much sooner if we would have known. Right? I still remember me and Kelly, on a side note, we used to go grocery shopping together. And I walked out once with, I think, was it 90 eggs? I walked out with 90 eggs. And Kelly was like, Natasha, what is wrong with you? And I was like, protein, Kelly, protein.
And it was a little bit over my head then. And it was quite interesting hearing my husband say something yesterday to someone else about the fact that everything I say now is like, is it got protein in it? Has it got protein in it? And it's just this huge education piece. So I think of that version of who Kelly was then. And you're so right. Like, people would go, yeah, but you didn't need to lose weight. In whose eyes? Actually, yes, my percentage of body fat was over. I did.
Yeah.
And for my height and for my age and for longevity, I absolutely did.
Yeah.
But people would go, but you didn't need to. And that's the thing on looking at other people's journey. It's got to be your journey. And you've got to build on that education, which is why I absolutely love what you do, because it is not just a case of losing weight. It's not that. It's education so you can build a lifetime habit. And I've got this photo shoot that we've been building towards, and I think having a goal is really helpful. Like, I'm not a runner. I've tried. We've run a half marathon together. We're like, we're never doing this again. And I've tried all those things. I've done the 10K. They don't fill my cup. Lifting weights, building strength, I love it. It makes me feel so happy. But I felt with that, where do I get a goal, something to aim towards? So for me, having that photo shoot has been such a goal to aim towards, and it's quite interesting that I'm going on holiday afterwards, and I'm like, oh, but the old version of Kelly would have been great, and I can have pizza every day, and I can do this, and I can do that, and I can do that, and it's like, I don't know if I want to. I'm like, I need my chicken. Where's my protein? I'm like, shall I take some eggs with me? It's ridiculous. But there is that mindset of, it has become such a habit now for what I'm doing, and I love it. Like, there's no part of me going, okay, don't get me wrong, I love a cheat. I love my pizzas and stuff, which I haven't had for the past month, and I can't wait to go and have one. But I feel so, so good and so happy.
That's amazing. I can see it. You're absolutely glowing. And the reason you've not had the pizza, just for everyone that's listening, is because Kelly has a photo shoot on Saturday. So we're being extra good so that the abs look nice and popped in all the pictures.
And that's for a one time.
Yeah.
Because it's very much part of the balance. Like, my husband and I love doing this together. So it's very much our thing of, we'll do it. And And I think that's something that you're also about educating, that it's not necessarily you have to give up everything that you love forever. Sure, if you're doing something, but you're getting married, you've got a goal that you want to do something, okay.
So you tighten up the strings just a little bit, right? Absolutely.
But yeah, he's very excited. That's straight after the shoot. You will see the picture on social. I will be there with my margarita, and I'll be like, I can't wait to eat it.
Oh,
So.
I can't wait. I'm so glad we're talking about photo shoots because this is something. I did a photo shoot. You encouraged me to do a photo shoot, and I was like, no, but even I was kind of uncomfortable with my body at that time because I was just starting the business. I was struggling with binge eating a little bit because I was navigating how to build this business, and you're like, Natasha, just go and do it. And the amount of confidence it brought me, it brought my business, it was mind blowing. And so I'm very, very, very grateful for that. However, when I pass that knowledge on and tell people, go and get the photo shoot done or dress the part, and the common response I get is, "But Natasha, I haven't lost the weight yet. I'm still binge eating. My body is so inflamed. I'm okay in these 3 sizes shirt that's up, or I'm okay, just showing up shabby." What does that do for the person, and why should they change that mentality?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it was something that happened a lot in the styling world when I was working with clients and they would inquire and they'd be like, interestingly, the most calls that I would get or inquiries online would be a Saturday night.
Really?
Yeah.
So
So that would
interesting.
be where people are getting ready to go out, they don't have anything to wear, they get frustrated, they've emptied the contents of their wardrobe, then they would contact me either on the weekend, the Saturday night, the late night message, WhatsApp, whatever it is, an email, and I would receive it. And then they would say, yeah, but I'm losing weight, or I want to lose more weight before I go and invest. And it would depend obviously on everyone's journey, on where they are. But I would always assess on, what does that journey look like? Because as you know, and those that are probably listening, a journey either way is it could be 6 months, it could be 12 months, or it's just ongoing. And it's back to those lifestyle habits that you do. So I would say, as I did, there's 2 parts. We don't have to go and do the whole day. Let's go and do a few hours. Let's go and get you a few things that you feel really good in, and then you can then get some more. It doesn't have to be you spend your whole budget on that. And then you reward yourself again rather than not feeling great, because that spurs you on even more. And in 15 years, people would always come back and say to me, I'm so glad we did that shopping session then, because those clothes, would you believe now, don't fit me. And then I even had another client recently. So styling's a very small part of what I do now, but it is still a part of their brand photo shoot when we want to get photography for their websites, and they'll go and see a photographer. And I had a client recently who I helped pick her, I think, 4 outfits for her shoot, and we actually did a bit more because I went to her house and we did a kind of one-to-one session in that space. And she said she felt so good from having the styled outfits coupled with the photo shoot. And then she went on, and in the last 6 months she's dropped X amount of kilos and feels even better. But she said from that moment I was so inspired and I felt so good. And she says, and people have noticed in the office. And she said it's like this invisible power of confidence.
Yeah. Do you find that they get the confidence? Does it help build to get them to that level of, because you spoke about voice, you spoke about how they show up. Maybe they want to speak on stage. Maybe they want to show up more on social media. Do you find that those outfits or showing up, even though they're not where they need to be, makes a difference on their personal brand and how they show up?
Absolutely. I think confidence comes when we start to see evidence. So I think on clients' journeys that are maybe on a weight loss journey, then when they see that first 100 grams, it's like, yeah, he's going in the right direction. And it's the same when you start to see a little bit evidence when you wear something and someone goes, oh, I really like your dress. Then there's a bit of evidence there and the confidence come from it. And, oh, wow, okay. And from that, but we've got to start doing something. You keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results.
Absolutely.
So we've got to do something that's different to make us feel different. Then we start to see the results, brings more confidence, and the world's your oyster.
Yeah. I'm going to pick your brain a little bit right now as far as my world and where we can start at a really ground and base level. Because some of the most common themes or conversations that come up behind back doors would be I'm damaged, I'm messy, I'm struggling right now. No one needs to see this part of me. But it's so important to build from there. It's so important to take them to the other side. So, in order to build that voice and visibility, coming from as low as those words, how can an individual start with just the basics? If you were to give them 3 to 5 tips of just turning their day around, what would be something that they could do?
Honestly, whenever I'm in that space, because it does happen where we're like, okay, I'm not feeling it. What is it that we're not feeling? And do you know what I do? Well, you probably do know what I do, is I edit. I edit my wardrobe.
Yeah.
I edit my jewelry, or I'll do my bathroom makeup, or I will look at my gym wear. And I believe that often how we feel, our surroundings affect us so much. So for me in that space, and as a, not even a quick fix, but as a mental way to feel good and to take some pressure off what we're keeping up in here, I would honestly say declutter.
Yeah.
Declutter your wardrobe, what's not feeling you, because that then portrays to the outer world. What makeup is not you? What around you on your desk if you work from home or if you're in the office? Like, what do you? Is there things that are broken, for example? Is there pictures up that you're like, do you know what? That's not me anymore. Change and refresh your pictures around you so there is that version of you or a time when you were really happy, to just shift the energy. And I think that's a really good space to start. And I did it just recently and I just felt so good. Treated myself to, sounds crazy, but a really nice new hairbrush that was really good for my hair, like a little bit of self-care in that. Because when you feel good, that invisible currency of energy starts to shine through. It's not a vanity exercise. It's a feel good for me because then I can serve, help, support, be there for my family, be there for my colleagues, my spouse, whatever it is. So I would say that would be a really good one to start with.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
And it's something practical. It's something practical that anyone can do right now. Just look at one area of your house that you want. And for some, it might be, the kitchen cupboards. It might have been, you always love to have a perfect kitchen. I remember. And you're organized and you had your stock in, and that made you feel good and in control, and I think when our surroundings feel great. Second is then looking at our habits and our daily habits, and what's working for us and what isn't working for us. And I think the biggest thing that trips people up when it comes to their habits is they overlook their evening routine.
Wow.
People
I'm so
get
glad you touched that.
obsessed with morning routines. And don't get me wrong, fellow 5 a.m.er, I know we love that. But you cannot be a morning person and you cannot function on having a really productive day if you are someone who goes to bed at 11 or sitting watching TV for 3 hours and then it's midnight before you turn off the box set. Now, don't get me wrong, I appreciate that there's shifts. I did shifts as crew. There are times that doesn't work for us. But on a whole, finding that nighttime routine and getting into it consistently is a game changer. And rewarding yourself 2 or 3 days a week going, oh, well, I've got my PT at 7 on this day, but on this day I don't have it, so I'm going to sleep till 9 on this day. No, we've got to find consistency every single day. Sure, on the weekends do whatever you want. And those that maybe got kids have got that consistency because there's little hands coming in and busting through the door. But on a whole, I would say get those routine. And I think going from a night owl to a morning owl, like that's tough. But little steps. And I look back at, I know one of the things that I introduced to you about doing your desire statements, and we do the planned power, and looking back over that, I look back at those statements that I write myself, the version of the person that I want to be in 12 months now. I've looked back at who that person was, and there was things I would write in that I can't believe that I wish to be that person, and I'm even better. There was one I found the other day. It was like, I would really like to go to bed consistently at 10 p.m. And it was like, and I'd really like to consistently get up by 6:30. Oh my God. I was like, I'm in bed by 8:30 now. Who goes to bed at 10? But that was a goal for me because I
Yeah.
didn't have the consistency. But that didn't just happen overnight. It took time.
Took time, absolutely.
So I would look at the habits in that, and then probably that third follow on is write down who is that version that you want to be, and write it in the past tense as if you're already that person. So it's a future letter to yourself where you're saying, it's 6 months from now, 12 months from now, and I've just met. I always think a really good way to explain it is if they've just bumped into you, or they've bumped into me at the airport and they're like, oh, Kelly, I heard the podcast, you and Natasha. And you're as if you're telling me, you won't believe it. Since I saw your episode, I have, and it's all in the past tense, and they write it as if they're telling that person. And it's a really powerful exercise because so many clients of mine, where they step into this brand of who they want to be, they send me a message a year later, 2 years later, and like, oh wow, I am this person. But they got clarity on not how they would become that person, because we don't always know the answers. But if we can have some clarity as to who that person is, the steps will then start to fall into place.
Absolutely. I love that because I do a similar assignment, let's say, with my clients, where I tell them, build your future you. Because people get so caught up in weight loss, weight loss, weight loss, weight loss. But who are you after the weight loss? Because if you don't know who you are, you're not going to be able to maintain it, right? You can go on this 6-month quick fix, but is it sustainable? Do you even like that lifestyle? So I love that. Something that I took away, me and Kelly used to live beside each other, and something that I really took away that I keep with me to this very day is social jet lag, because that played a huge role, right? Doing 5 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. or 10 p.m. on the weekdays, and come weekends, I'm like, but it's the weekend. I can't sleep at 2 a.m. and I can't sleep at 3. And then it's that whole reset and starting fresh again on Monday, which is almost like, it's almost as bad as having a bad diet on the weekend and then starting fresh with your food on Monday. That was something, as far as, because we were talking about sleep, I use that to this very day, the social jet lag. Yeah, because I feel so refreshed even on the weekends. It's one of the reasons why I work out on the weekends now. I go for my Pilates. So something that I really have taken away and apply in my life. To that, I want to add, it sounds like in order to build this lifestyle, right, and this is something I've always respected about you, and I've actually learned a lot as well, is boundaries, right? Because a lot of people struggle with their boundaries. In order to have the great nighttime routine, in order to be that morning person, in order to go to the gym, in order to do all the things that you're able to do in a day, you should have boundaries. And you've always been really good with that. How? And how can someone really work to develop that if they don't know how to say no?
Yeah, you're never going to please everyone. And I think you've got to start with pleasing yourself. And I think that gets a little bit older. I don't know, something happened when I got to 40 and I was like, right, okay, do you know what? Cross over. And then
Enough is enough.
wow, it's not that you tolerate less, but I think you're much more comfortable in your own skin. And some people I've always had that skin, but I would say that skin's taken time to develop and learn. And I worked in the fashion industry for 15 years. Like, I was a massive kind of people pleaser, who wanted to keep up with the Joneses. I think there was a huge piece in that. Whereas when I sort of stepped away from that, and it kind of coincided with, turning 40 and the relationship breakdown, and everything kind of happened at once, I would say that there's a huge piece on going, does that work for me? And for sure, don't get me wrong, there's times when I'll go out to 1 a.m. I will, because that's fun, or it's someone's birthday, or that's what it is. But I always remember PT said to me, nothing good happens after midnight. All you do is lose your shoe. And it's true, the Cinderella piece in that. And it's kind of true, like, nothing excellent happens after midnight anyway. And I think that's been a huge area of thinking. There's not the FOMO anymore. There really isn't. And I actually call it the instead of the fear of missing out. It's the joy of missing out. I would love.
JOMO, I think.
Yeah, is that what they
it,
say?
right?
JOMO. I love it. Like I'm proud to be a 9 p.m.er. Like it's funny. I see these memes on social media where it's like your childhood nightmare has become your adult crush, where it's like eat your vegetables, go to your bed by 9 o'clock, and it's so true.
Yeah, Mom was right.
Yeah, totally. Well, not if you were labeled a fussy eater. But on a whole, I would say there is something in that, and you've got to do the balance piece. There's some times it goes out the window, absolutely. But on a whole, I'm pretty much consistent, and you find other things. So, if you think about our relationship, a lot of it was built around the gym. We do co-working days. We do lunches out. Like, it's very rare that I'll be like, hey, Natasha, do you want to go out at 8 p.m.? You'd be like, who is this person? And I feel that that's very much, on holiday, different. We get dressed up, we go out for dinner, anniversary, all that kind of thing. It still happens. But I think back to the boundaries of, does this work for me? Because if you're saying yes, then aren't you going to show up as that person that you want to be?
Yeah.
Because if you're saying yes out of due diligence and having to do it, then you're coming with a level of energy, the invisible currency, that you don't actually want to be there. And then I think that brings its own complications.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because me and Kelly are in a group chat, and someone sent a message at 9:30, and I looked at the phone. I was like, Kelly's not going to respond to this.
I
And
didn't.
you didn't.
I didn't. And
You
I
didn't.
and I
You
replied the
responded,
next morning.
The next morning, because I was like, she's probably asleep. There's no way. That's how. Because that's how I know you, and like I said, it's something I struggled with when we first met, and I struggled with communication. It's like, oh, but how? And I can't. You're like, Natasha, just speak up. Just talk, just say it. And I think it's so important there, because a lot of people that struggle with binge eating or struggle with emotional eating struggle with their communication. They struggle with boundaries. So thank you for giving that tip, because it seems like a good entryway for someone to step on and say, yeah, you know what, I can say no, I can stand up for myself.
And I think there's different, you can give a reason, you don't have to give a reason as to why. I think people feel compelled that they need to give reasons. But also if it's something that, for example, can you come out tonight? I really want you to come, can we go out for dinner? Actually, that doesn't work for me because I'm on this. And I've been saying this, over the past few months, evenings don't tend to work for me. But if I needed to, I would. But at the moment, I'm not doing evenings also because I don't want to go out and have a dinner. I don't want to spend my calories because I'm really focused on my goal. It's short term. That's it.
Yeah.
But when you've got a purpose, then people are like, oh, it's nothing personal. It's okay. And that communication piece comes back down to your personal brand. Is if you communicate to people, then you control the narrative, not them. Because otherwise, then they'll be like, oh, well, they don't like me very much, or, have I said something? Or then people start to make up stuff. No, do you know what? No, I'm working on this, and I don't need any distractions, and I've got to get up early tomorrow, and it's my goal. And then usually people are like, great, I'm so pleased for you. You're looking really well. The journey's working, whatever it is. And I think that comes down to communication.
Yeah.
No one can give you a hard time for you wanting to show up as a better version of yourself.
Absolutely. And it gets better. The more you do it, the more confident you get. Because now I'm like, no. And I do it with a smile on my face.
But it goes back to the evidence.
Yeah.
That no one's gone back to you and gone, oh, well, you're a horrible friend. Or no, you then start to find other things. So it's evidence-based, gives you the confidence to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Because now the feedback I get is, oh, Natasha, you're so disciplined, or don't mess with Natasha's timings, or not on the weekday, so it's being recognized for that as well. Also, the consistency piece then comes into play as well. Yeah, I agree 100%. Thank you so much for sharing that. The other part I want to talk about is the pressure to look a certain way, right? And we feel that no matter where we are, what body size we are in. But if someone's trying to show up on their personal brand, but there's all this social media pressure of the Pilates era, or people walking around with the slim fit dresses and things of that sort, how can an individual find their being authentic and also owning their personal brand, and also not get sucked into this pressure and say, well, that's too much for me, then I might as well I'm not even bothered?
Do you mean online or offline?
I would say a bit of both.
Yeah, because again, it goes back to how showing up for ourselves and feeling good for ourselves. Wearing makeup, not everyone wants to wear makeup, and that's okay. But also, not everyone brushes their hair, and they should, And I think there's the whole piece on, yes, feel good for yourself, but also there is, I think, in some ways, if you're not doing that, there's a bigger story behind it. Why are you not doing that? Oh, well, because I don't care what people think about me. Then there's a deeper story behind there. And that's when you need to look at that. And just that's their way of it, expressing it. But back to the piece of whether you're doing it online or offline. With your personal brand, you control the narrative. And I think there is this space of you say nothing on social media. Then there is the side of people will make up. Which, if we look at going on a date and Googling someone, and if there's nothing about that person on a date, the first thing that springs to mind is you're like, what are they hiding? Or what's going on? Or why are they? And I think finding a space that you're comfortable in. Everyone's got a hobby or something that they're interested in. And that could be documenting the journey of this. There's a little bit of responsibility. That's not for everyone, but that could be something. It could be, do you know what, I'm into sunsets. And, you don't have to share that I'm doing this Pilates and I'm having this matcha and I'm being seen and I'm being here. It's about what works for you, because the reality is, you think people care, but they actually don't. And you get so much in your own head.
Yep.
And in actual fact, people have thought about you for half a second and then have moved
on to the next profile.
Exactly. So I think a huge piece is get out of your own head. And if you're in an industry, or if you're in a role where maybe you're a mentor in work, or you're someone who's in a serving-based industry, you're best placed to serve the person you once were, but you only need to be one chapter ahead to really help someone, and that person is looking up to you. I do little quotes and postcards, and I often give them out to clients, or if I'm at an event, and one of them says, be the girl that you wanted when you were, be the girl you wanted when you were a kid. And that's the whole piece of who would you want to look up for? Show up as that person, not as the person that everyone else thinks, because we're all different. Be that person that the 7-year-old Kelly wanted to look up to. Be that person that the 8-year-old Natasha wanted to look up to. That's all you should be thinking about.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for being so open, honest, candid, raw, and real. I really, really love that. If you could give 2 to 3 pieces of advice for a woman that's wanting to strengthen her personal brand and really showing up for herself, starting from the bare minimum, what are some of the things that even a man, for that matter, could they start doing as of today?
I think I would say making notes. And I say making notes, one of the things I encourage clients to do is create what I call a story bank. Some people journal, great, but create a little story where just every day you write down one thing that happened. And that can then actually start to provide a bank of content one day. It can provide a memory bank that you're not going to remember every interaction you have with your children, but it could be just one thing in that. But you can never see how far you've come until you look back. And if I were talking about the desire statements that I used to write, and I'd be like, that version of Kelly really wanted to get up at 6:30 in the morning and really wanted to go to bed at 10 o'clock. But I'm beyond that. So it was so nice to look at that. So if you can just write, create a story bank, and a lot of people go, but nothing good happened, nothing great happened. Then ask yourself, what was the second least interesting thing that happened to me today? So not the not, but there's always something that was the second least interesting. And when you look at on that, you're like, oh yeah, that happened. And you never know where or how that could actually come into being something that becomes part of your story. Because as we move into this AI space and, these generic AI posts that we see on social media,
Wow.
your story and your journey is what makes you you, and that is your personal brand. So if you can start with that, I would say would be a huge piece of gratitude that the future version of you will be very thankful, because there's so much to be said that the messy parts actually becomes your message.
Yeah.
And what it is that you do. And I think back to the journey I've been on, yourself, what you are doing, that messy, that hard part has become a message for empowering women and men out there to feel a better version of themselves. So I would say that would be one. The second piece I would say could be that quick fix of just looking at your surroundings, reflecting, decluttering. Do these clothes represent this version of me? Because that can then make you feel that invisible energy. And on the days that maybe you're just not quite feeling 100%, but you put on that blazer, or you put on the lipstick, or you do that makeup the way that makes you feel good, then that can carry you to the next one. So that's kind of a bit of a quick one that someone who's watching can do that now. And then I think the third piece is perfection. The dream goal weight, it doesn't exist. This weight, this journey that I'm on with building muscle, I always thought this was going to be a one-off, this photo shoot. And I've already said to my friend and trainer, I've said, I think I'm going to do another photo shoot, because this is just the beginning. So that whole piece of looking for the perfect body, the perfect pose, the perfect personal brand, it's the beauty's in the imperfection, because none of us are perfect.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Kelly.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you for joining us
I loved
today.
it. Thank you for asking me different questions.
No,
So
it's
nice.
an absolute pleasure, and we'll talk soon.
Love it.